And so the food storage is literally for life, for everyday life. It's a really good way to weather crop failures or something and prices going up, because if you're stocking the items that you normally use, peanut butter and what are some of the things that are like vanilla right now, then, and you have enough to last you, then you can afford to buy only when there's a sale. Because you'll see a sale and you'll go, oh, I'll stock up a little on that. And then you're gonna be spending less. And you also have that comfort of knowing that you're gonna not have to knock on the Bishop's door right as soon as you know what I mean? A week after you find out.
Well, that's true, but I can tell you, there may come a time when the Bishop has no food to give.
Yeah, well, I was just talking about normal,
like job loss or something like that.
That's another part of food storage, is it's dead useful for just everyday living.
Okay, good. Okay, so Emily, you're going to talk to us about this now.
All right.
We'll get these magnets done.
Yeah.
Wrong word.
Well, come on in.
Of course, anymore, it'd be hard to know, right? You can recognize the few people, but
Yeah, with masks.
with 7 months, new people move in and people move out.
All right, so how would you like to save $13,000 on groceries in a year?
Oh, yeah.
So I actually did that back about 9 years ago now, because back in about 9 years ago, actually no, how old's Alex? I don't know, so like 12 years ago. Because back when we lived in Arizona, the stores there used to double and triple coupons. And I made friends with an older lady that would go dumpster diving and get tons and tons of the copies of the coupons, like where the newspaper people would throw them away. And then I would tell her the sales, what sales to match the coupons with. And then, you know, she'd give me coupons and we'd go shopping, and you know, and I ended up, and I kept track that year. So between working with coupons and working with the sales, I saved $13,000 in groceries. And now it's not as easy because stores don't double and triple coupons like they used to. But if you learn how to shop and when to shop, like you were kind of saying, it can make a big difference and you can save a lot of money. Because right now, as we're going into the fall and winter, and I forgot to bring I have a handout that I actually made for the young women that I can upload for all of you, and it breaks down like January, these are the things that will be on sale. February, these are the things that will be on sale. Because like right now, baking things are on sale. Flour, sugar, you know, vanilla, you know, because like as people are preparing for the holiday seasons, that kind of stuff's on sale. And if you think about it, like school supplies, like even like back in like August when school supplies are on sale, you can get a box of crayons for 50 cents. You go any other time of the year, it's $2.30. So it's amazing, you know, just by shopping at the certain time, what you can do. And as I started doing that, and as I started building up, then I actually started building my food storage just by shopping the sales and by doing that. And so I've got first the 4 rules of planning. So this is kind of to help plan. Cover up, sorry, your stuff. But all right, so plan your meals. L, make a list. A, check the ads. N, never shop hungry. Because if you shop hungry, you will buy a lot more than you need. So I like to, especially now that I'm working, because last year I just worked less hours and now I'm working more hours this year, so I have to plan my meals more. Otherwise tonight even I forgot to put my dinner in the slow cooker this morning, so we had Chick-fil-A for dinner tonight. So I'm not perfect by any means, but if you plan, and you can plan by looking what's on sale like right now, because like even like stuffing, like if you like stuffing, now's the time to buy it. And if you check like how long it's good for. And also what I did a while back, my sister-in-law, she had 4 kids under 5 and under, because she had a boy, girl, then had twins. So she, as they grew up, would just make, like every Monday they would make spaghetti. Every Tuesday they would have this dish. Every Wednesday they would have this dish. And they would just rotate the same dishes, because she knew they liked it, she knew it was easy, she knew it was simple. And I did something along those lines, but different a while back. I had a monthly dinner menu. And on Mondays, I would always do something from food storage. So I had 4 different recipes of just like food storage foods, and on Mondays I would do one of those 4. And then on Tuesdays I used to do a cooking club with my sister-in-laws, and we would all submit 1 new recipe a month. So then we would make that. And then I would put the, recipes actually just in the book. And even then I would have like things you might need to buy just really quick so you can see, and versus things that are probably pantry items, so things you already have. And so, especially when you're thinking about building up food storage, just think, what do I like to eat? What things do I like to eat? And just sit down and write down some of your favorite meals. And then look at the ones that have, either minimal ingredients or just mostly ingredients that are like pantry ingredients. And then just, make a list and have that list ready, and then buy the things, buy maybe 3 months worth of stuff for spaghetti if your family loves spaghetti, because in the jars of the spaghetti sauce, and, the sauce, and just, and then just check the ads and start, and just start building it up, and especially when it's on sale, because all the sales circulate, and there's really just a pattern to it, and as you learn it, then you can save a lot of money. And I like this quote from just this morning. I was listening to conference talks from this last conference, and Bishop Waddell said, "From the beginning of time, the Lord has provided direction to help his people prepare spiritually and temporally against the calamities and trials that he knew will come as part of this mortal experience. These calamities may be personal or general in nature, but the Lord's guidance will provide protection and support to the extent that we heed and act upon his counsel." And we had Elder Bednar came and spoke when he lived in California. He came and spoke to our stake. And at the time he did a question and answer. And he at the time said, a lot of times people ask me like, oh, why do the brethren keep talking about tithing? Or why do they keep talking about, such and such? And he's like, you guys are what determine what they talk about. He's like, if you don't want talks about tithing, pay your tithing, and it's just, and it seemed like this conference, because they've talked about, it felt like, they had talked about preparedness in the past, and they kind of had gotten away from it for a while, but this conference was so much like, be united, be prepared, and, and just kind of get ready, it felt like, and it was just an overarching theme, so it's, so we just do need to do the little things so we can be prepared, and think about, and also when I try and think about things from building up my food storage, I think, things like toilet paper and things like that and also just like go through your day and say, what do I use every day? Is there something that you use every day that you'd be really not happy if you had? Even like toothpaste. Like if you just would go crazy not being able to brush your teeth, stock up on toothpaste. Just things that can help bring you comfort and peace, just to have a little bit of normalcy and just kind of that routine. And always just check, the expiration dates. And then for when you are shopping, then I have my codes about shopping. So the 4 rules of this is 5, wow, I can count. A good thing I helped teach math to 5th graders. All right, so check out the unit price. Because a lot of times you might think the bigger in bulk is like better, but it's not necessarily, and so always check the unit price. And usually because on when the shelves in the store, tell the price, and then it'll say such per ounce or whatever. So check that and compare and shop that way. And then outside in when you're shopping, this one isn't as much for if you're building food storage, but this is just for healthier and better shopping in general, because on the outside of the stores is where the fresh fruits and vegetables will be, where the meats, as you get into the stores, it's more processed, more just excess stuff, more junk. So shop the outsides of the stores in. Don't waste money. I remember when I used to coupon, there would be, because at the time there was no food tax in Arizona, and so sometimes with the coupons doubling up, there would be certain things that at times I would literally leave the store not playing anything. And other times I remember there was bush beans, big cans of Bush's beans were on sale, and with the coupon and with doubling, they came down to like 25 cents each. So I got so many cans of Bush's beans, but we never eat them. And when we ended up moving to California, I was looking at the dates, I'm like, oh, we didn't eat any of these, they're all expired now, so we just threw them away. So even if it's a super good sale, if you're not gonna eat it, and if it's not something your family likes, you're just wasting your money, don't buy it. So don't waste your money. And then check expiration dates, because a lot of times stores, when they are having their big sales, it's probably because they're trying to clear out a lot of that stuff. So some of the expiration dates might be, coming up quickly. So make sure if you're stocking up on something, you're checking the expiration dates, and will you be able to eat it before that date? And a lot of things you can eat past their dates, especially if it's a Best Buy date. You can go beyond the Best Buy dates. And then stick to your list. So codes, because then just, stick to your list, because otherwise it's so easy when you're shopping, just, oh yeah, I forgot that, oh, and I need this, and oh, I need this, and oh yeah, that looks good, and then suddenly you've gone way over what you mean to spend. And so just really just begin slowly, just figure out and think about what's something my family loves to eat, what's something we always eat, and how can we stock up on that, and just slowly build from there. And there was one more quote from Bishop Waddell, and he said, "In today's environment, with a pandemic that has devastated the whole economies as well as individual lives, it would be inconsistent with a compassionate Savior to ignore the reality that many are struggling and ask them to begin building a reserve of food and money for the future. However, that does not mean, let me start that over. In today's environment, with a pandemic that has devastated whole economies as well as individual lives, it would be inconsistent with a compassionate Savior to ignore the realities that many are struggling and ask them to begin building a reserve of food and money for the future. However, that does not mean we should permanently ignore the principles of preparation, only that these principles should be applied in wisdom and order, so that in future we might say, as Joseph in Egypt, there was bread. The Lord does not expect us to do more than we can do, but he does expect us to do what we can do when we can do it. As President Nelson reminded us in this last general conference, the Lord loves effort. And so just keep that in mind, and don't feel overwhelmed, but just really, just as you go in the week, just write down the things you use. Just make a list of everything you use that week. And then, look back and say, okay, this is something I definitely can't live without. This is something I have to have, so let's start buying and stocking up on those things. And
Okay, thank you. Now we've got another expert to tell us what she does to manage it, because that's one of the things that people talk about. I don't know how to keep on top of what I've got and what I don't have and what I've needed, and so Jane Rollins is going to talk about what she does.
You called me an expert. That setting expectations very high.
Of course you're an expert.
Oh, right. So at the beginning of this pandemic, I learned pretty quickly what I had and what I didn't have when it came time for food storage. And I thought I was good, and I was for the most part. If I wanted to eat just like cans of beans, just kidney beans, I could go well. But if I wanted actually like meals and stuff, I needed some practice and some work. So I spent a lot of time prepping up this whole summer, bulking up our food storage. We actually took the stimulus money and said this is 100% food storage. And so all of our stimulus money has gone into emergency preparedness. And because of that, we now have a bunch of food. It's like, okay, now what? So we took our storage room downstairs and we bought shelving units. We have like 3 different shelving units. Costco's the best place to buy those. And we basically have our own little mini store in our house. Now I tell you all this, and if emergency happens, don't come raid my house, okay? Go raid someone else's house. This is not an invitation. But we have like my own little mini store. And I have the long-term stuff that's like in my number 10 cans that are good for 20 years. I've got some of that. But I also have the stuff that is good for maybe a year or two that I shop from my pantry. And, I have my ketchup and my mustard and stuff. And I panic bought 5 jars of pickle relish one day. And now I have a lot of pickle relish. You can have some of that. But whenever I buy stuff, we take it home, and if it's going to go downstairs, we take a Sharpie and we just write the date on it. Like, this is when we brought this into our home. Sharpie everything with Sharpie. Can I dance? So with that Sharpie stuff, and then we take our food and we put it at the back of the shelf of our line of ketchup bottles or our line of brown sugar bags or a line of pasta bags or whatever it is. And so that way when you go down and grab one, you're always grabbing from the front and it rotates through. That's pretty simple. But the real way I've learned to actually use my food storage is to actually use my food storage. And so for this past month of October, I haven't tracked it completely well, but I've tried to eat my food storage. And one advice that I've heard from a woman that I really admire, her thing was for 1 month, only spend $25 a week on groceries. And that's just for your fresh stuff. And the rest of it, shop from your pantry, shop from your freezer, shop from the dark cupboards of wherever you found your oats. But that's where you go shopping. And for 1 month, so you're only spending $100 a month, that 1 month. And take that extra money that you're saving and use that to rebuy your food storage at the end. But for that month, only use what you have already. And then buy some supplemental things. You know, if you need a head of lettuce or you need a gallon of milk or something, you can do that. But by doing that, you start learning what you have, what you need, what you like, what you don't. So when I have my can of kidney beans, it's like, hey, how am I gonna make this a dinner? So I throw it in some ground beef and some taco seasoning and add some cheese and throw in some rice, and now I have this Mexican dish. And all of those things I have on hand already, and I don't need to go and buy some and waste some. And so by doing that, I have started to figure out how to use my food and how to get my family used to eating that food. And I think that has been very helpful. I've had to be creative. I look up recipes online all the time to figure that out. But by dedicating that specific month to like, hey, we're gonna practice this food storage thing and hit it hard, I've learned a lot this month. And I've also purchased other things in bulk that are really good sales and things. I love your sales stuff. That's how I buy things. But if you don't know how to make bread, buying yeast and flour is not going to do you any good. So practice making bread now, and then that way later when you need to, you can. Practice using what you have, cycling it through. But one of the biggest things that we do now is we have a Google spreadsheet that we have inventoried our entire food storage. It took several hours. It's not easy. But we have it all in alphabetical order, from like applesauce to zucchini. You know, I guess we don't have zucchini. But the idea being that we have everything listed in order, all canned fruit, cake mixes, of ketchup bottles, of whatever we have in our food storage, in our basement pantry. We have it on a list. And next to it, we have the number of how much we have of it. And then every time we start getting low of something, we just mark it in red. Be like, hey, next time there's a good sale, buy some cake mixes. And so this week, when cake mixes were $1, I went out and I bought some cake mixes. You know, and that's how I know that I needed some more. And like, do I need cake mix? No, but my family will use it and we like to have it on hand. And it's not going to be our 20-year storage, it's more of our 1-year storage. And so by having a spreadsheet, and every time we take something out, we just write a note, minus 1 can of beans, or whatever it is. And then we'll go and we'll update our spreadsheet. And then weekly or monthly or whatever it is we want to do, we look at the spreadsheet, we see where we're at. Okay, I need to buy some more salt. So I'll go and I'll buy some more salt, or whatever it is. Or just have that note. And it takes dedication and work. I wish there was a better app for it or something that did it all for you. Maybe there will be someday. Or if you know of one, please let me know. But by going through our spreadsheet, by practicing what we eat for a month with $25 for a supplement, and by dating everything and rotating it physically through our pantry is how I manage my food storage.
Any questions?
Maybe a suggestion.
Sure.
So I understand you're using the spreadsheet.
Yeah.
Is it more digital?
Yes.
In the computer, right?
Yes.
To be practical, because I know that will take your separately out of your time to sit down in the computer, log in, and do. So for me, that's like troublesome. Okay, so for me, I'm just gonna create
You can do a
what you call
physical
this,
list.
a physical list just right there where this what do you call this that you bought at Costco?
The shelving.
The shelving,
Yeah.
yeah, just right there. So as soon as you got one, okay, -1.
Yeah.
So you have it as -1. So it's just immediately you already wrote it down. As soon as you took it, -1. Just find -1. So I feel like, oh,
That's good.
if that was me, that would be my
That's good.
system.
Thank you.
Yes, physically.
So
Yes.
I remember when I first started this, it was really intimidating. I grew up outside of the church. My mom was a gourmet cook, and I was not raised eating the way that a lot of people do, you know, in our culture right now. And so I had to sort of rethink some things. And I think honestly, it can, if you're starting with something like this, you have to start, or if we're gonna be talking to someone, like my daughters, for example, or who haven't really started food storage. Of course, they learn some of what they learned from knowing that I would always ask them, do you wanna go shopping downstairs and for me, grab it, because I have the plastic bags hanging from, I tie them into a little ball and put them in a bag, and so they just grab one, open it up and start looking, Mom wants this and she wants that, you know what I mean? But I think the first thing is to learn from other people what some of their favorite food storage type foods are. You know, like taco soup is something that is sort of familiar to a lot of people, and it's dead easy to make. It's one of those things that you can make, it's like a dump soup, you know what I mean? As long as you've got some shredded cheese and some chips and hamburger, which, by the way, one of the best things in the world is to get a lot of hamburger, brown it up, and then put it in Ziploc baggies for a pound each sort of, and freeze it, so that you just have to grab it out. And then there's how many recipes just require a pound of hamburger, you know? But I think that sometimes helps is to just bend your mind around what. And then recently, I'll just say this one thing, someone's talking about freezer meals. And I realized after all these years that I could just think about things that I normally would eat, and I could find ways to adapt it into a freezer meal, like country style pork ribs with barbecue sauce. Just put it all in a gallon Ziploc. The country style pork ribs, the gallon, you know, seal it and then freeze it flat, and it's just ready to put it in the oven. So easy. Same thing with marinating chicken with McCormick grill mates or something. You can make the marinade and just marinate it, put it in there. It was just something simple. So I think if you.
It's interesting that you came to that kind of late in the day,
Yeah.
not knowing that right away.
Right, yeah.
Thank you. So here's a book that I have just that I've discovered. It's written by two LDS gals. It's called Store This, Not That, and they've done all this research. It's so worth the money. It's like $17. It might be more now. I'm not sure, but it was when I purchased it. She goes through that calendar of when things are on sale. She talks about what you were talking, you know, school supplies and baking goods and what's on sale in January is kind of interesting. So it's really good for that, but she also has done all this research on things like, is it worth your money to buy freeze-dried foods? Is it better to be buying for your storage, dehydrated? She has recipes and so forth. So if you're looking for a book to manage and get you through how to do food storage, I would recommend this book. Okay, so we're gonna move food storage now, and I've passed out to everybody. These are pamphlets that have come from the US government. So this small one is an emergency supply list. And the second one is from Homeland Security. Preparing makes sense, get ready now. And it says, get a kit, make a plan, be informed about what might happen, get involved in preparing your community. So these pamphlets are really good in terms of getting you ready. Oops, sorry. thinking about what might be ahead of us, especially in these uncertain last days times. On the back of this blue bottom one is a list, recommended supply list to include in a basic kit. Okay, so flashlight, extra batteries, first aid kit, manual can opener. That actually takes a little work to figure out what's a good manual can opener. And so so now you're gonna be kind of working on this list, be kind of be prepared to go, and getting a 5-gallon bucket to start putting supplies in is a really great idea. And these are available at Winco, right up the street now for $4.98. And there's a lid you can get as well. I was in there today to get this bucket for today. The lids were gone. So if you're in the store and you think you're gonna need a lid, I'd say pick one up, even if, so that you have that. Okay, so there's a rule. We got lots of rules and lists, don't we? But if you're in a situation, we're gonna talk now about what happens if the power goes out. Now, what kinds of things might cause us to be without power?
Earthquake.
Yes,
A windstorm, a storm.
Yeah.
any kind of a bad storm. Anything else?
Car accident. The other day there was a car that hit a breaker and there was no power. In North
Okay,
Shore.
that's a good
Yeah.
comment. It could happen, yeah. But what's going on in Philadelphia right now? Anybody know?
Riots.
Riots are going on in Philadelphia. Now certainly we pray that will not be something we face. But some people are pretty crazy now. And they might, oh, Daybreak, that's a bunch of she people up there. They all have tons of money, and let's go take care of them. And I had a friend one time, he was in intel, military intel, and he said, it's the easiest thing in the world to blow a couple of power lines and take out whole blocks of people. So if you've got terrorists or people who are bound to do that kind of thing, that is a possibility. Now, we're not gonna go there tonight specifically, but we're saying that things can happen. We know that Utah is earthquake country, so you need to plan to be without power. So that's what these lists are for, these emergency lists. How to get yourself ready to deal with something like that. I have another one for you called Power Out, Now What? So Sister Barton, ask you to help me with this. I'll take one. Before I move into that though, I'm gonna tell you what's on this table and then we'll dive in. One thing, everybody, whether you eat it or not, you should have a jar of peanut butter in your house. Because everyone will eat peanut butter. Now, if you have a peanut allergy, obviously, you need to get out almond butter or something. But everyone will eat peanut butter, and even if you don't have bread, you can have a spoon. When I had lots of little kids, and I discovered somewhere along the line that about 3:30 in the afternoon, when their blood sugar was low, they were crazy. And I figured out that if I would just get out a spoon for every one of them. Here you go, here's your spoon, here's your spoon, here's your spoon. And they would all have their spoons of peanut butter, and they got happy pretty quick. It got me to dinner. So this is really a useful thing. So everybody get one of these if you don't have one. Sister, what was her name? Paula Cannon said, she was in favor of having comfort foods and chocolate chips. That's a great idea. But going along with that is, I don't know, have you ever been able to eat one chocolate chip? It's like, give me a handful. But something that works really well is hard candies. So these are Winco. These you get in bulk. And you put these somewhere like I have. I have a tin, a specific tin, that's a nondescript kind of a tin, so that when the grandkids are around, they don't know where this is.
You'll figure it out.
Maybe. Maybe, right? But the point is, there's something very comforting and calming about sucking on hard candy. So everyone should have some hard candy tucked away for a crisis time for comfort food. So those two things. Having water that you can use. Suppose if the water supply stops, what are you going to do? There's a whole list of things that you can go to, like this. This is really good on YouTube, the Provident Prepper. They have some really good YouTube videos on doing water, taking care of your situation. These, BeReadyUtah.gov and Utah.gov Be Ready, either one of these. And there's more brochures we're trying to get hold of that they talk about what do you do about water. But here's something you can do right now. And in fact, these are on sale at Winco. What are these?
Coffee filters.
Coffee filters. I mean, I normally don't have coffee filters around. My mother did, but I didn't. I don't. However, here's the thing. It rained, there's a puddle outside your house, you don't have enough water, you'd like to utilize that water. So you go and you scoop it up in a bucket or something and you bring it in, but it's muddy and maybe there's some sand in it or whatever. And here is your water filter. You pour your water through this first thing you do. So that cleans it up a little bit. You might want to use 2, whatever. Then you're going to have your bleach or other products for water purification. But you never try and purify water without doing some kind of filter. If you don't have these, then you get to use things like your shirt, you know? So it's just really handy to have some of these at your house. In terms of bleach, you should know this. After 6 months, a jug of bleach begins to change composition. And so it doesn't become the disinfectant that you think it is. So you need to mark your bleach bottles as to when you purchase them, or if there's some kind of date on them, pay attention, because you need to renew your bleach, because we will all need bleach to be purifying water at some point. You should have matches. So I got my husband, when he was doing some shopping for me, he's not doing that so much anymore, but when he was kind of going to the store, he would always pick up a box of these. So I now have like 20 boxes of matches. You never know when you're gonna need a match. So every home should have boxes of matches. Speaking of your home, I just had this cute little tin. It's not really a house, but it's to represent a house. Have you had your home dedicated by the priesthood? So my husband went through, he got out the church handbook tonight and he looked at it and I said, what are the things that it can be dedicated through the power of the priesthood for? And one of them is safety. So it's a good thing to dedicate your home as we go into these times really where things are very uncertain. So this is a $1 flashlight. And it has a pretty good beam. It's pretty bright. I can find what I want. Pretty good. Well, let's compare that to this. Now, if it were dark, which of these would you rather have? If you're trying to find your kids or your car keys or something important. This one, and I think it even, I was doing this the other day, I don't want to blind anybody, but I think it expands out to be bigger or smaller. So when you're thinking about Christmas gifts and stuff, do this kind of thing now. And in fact, I did this one year for all my kids. I have 7. I gave all my sons and their wives, everybody got a head lamp. This is mine. So when you're in the midst of some kind of crisis like power out and so forth, having a headlamp so you're not trying to manage a flashlight, find things, carry things, take care of children, doing things with food, having a headlamp. The interesting thing was after I did this for my family, they all said, oh, this is so great, especially my daughters. Said, oh, I was able to manage all kinds of things and I didn't have to worry about light. So these things are not expensive, you know, in the realm of things. And yet this is a kind of a beginning articles to put in your bucket, have at the ready for your crisis time. There's a rule, I gotta watch the time. Oh, there's a rule of 3s. So if we are without power, for instance, or let's say a nuclear blast, which has been predicted, by the way, for Hill Air Force Base at some future time. So let's say that happens and now you've got gridlocks. You're in your car, you can't go anywhere, you're stuck. So now you have to figure out how to get home, so forth and so on. Well, let's say it's snowing while all this is going on. You need to know this, that if you are in the outside, or even someplace without heat, which would be your car, because you'll think that you'll have heat for a while until what happens? Gas tank finally goes dry, and then you don't have heat anymore. You can survive without shelter or out in the cold for 3 hours. So you need to know, when I became aware of this, it was like, oh my gosh, we have got to have better things in the car. And I see my daughters all the time, grown women, going out to the store or out to the ball game or something, and they're wearing a sweater. No sign of a coat. It's like, well, now if you're stuck in it, if anything goes wrong, you're just got a sweater. So you start thinking about that, especially in terms of children. You can survive without water for 3 days. So if you have no source of water, you got 3 days. Food, you have 3 weeks, which is interesting. We always, we concentrate on food, but we don't think about water. So, in terms of your home, you need to start thinking about how you're gonna deal with water for your family, because you need 1 gallon a day per person. So let's say we're in some kind of situation that lasts 2 weeks. So for 2 people, how many gallons is that? 2 a day, 14 days, 28 gallons of water, and that's culinary water to drink, to make yourself some soup or some oatmeal, to wash up a little bit. Now you can't do a big bath or anything. Military showers, they used to call them, Navy showers, where you just kind of wipe yourself down. But you're gonna need 1 gallon per person per day. Now, if you've got 5 kids, there's 2 of you, that's 7 people, that's 7 gallons a day. Okay, so those 55-gallon barrels, I've seen them is it IVF? I never get that right. Is that the name of the farm store?
IFA.
IFA, thank you. They have had them. You could order them online. There's lots of places to get them. You just fill them up with city water. City water has already been chlorinated and all the things, so it's good. You don't have to worry about anything. Just fill up that barrel. Some people say, oh, I don't want to do that. I'll just get flats of water bottles, like this. Okay, if that's but you got to figure out you got the right amount, and you can see where that's going to take up a lot of space pretty quick. If you're putting things in your basement, or your garage, never, ever, ever put anything on concrete. It will take up the flavor of the concrete. So you must have a barrier between your water or whatever it is and the concrete. And that can be a rug, it can be a mat, it can be a cardboard box that you flattened out, something between the concrete and your water.
And we bought a pack. You could fill it up with so many gallons of water, and it actually filters the water. It's like, I forget what it's even called. It's one of those, people like, well, we've got a big lake right down there, so if worst comes to worst, because it's meant to filter, be a really good strong filter, so
A lot of
filter.
people,
Yeah, so we do have the big blue things too in our garage with the Wausau water, but we also have that, something we invested in recently, because we're like, worst comes to worst, and there's a big lake right there.
Do those big, and a lot of people want water out of that lake too.
Yeah.
But those big blue things, the barrels, do they stay in the garage okay?
They do.
Because it gets dang hot and very cold,
Yeah.
both,
We have the thicker ones, because they have like the thinner ones, and they have the thicker ones, we used to have these big black ones in California even too. And those ones you could go a year, because we rotate the water every 6 months. So a general conference, we usually just do a general conference, and because you're supposed to rotate the water, like some they can be 6 months, some can be a year, depending on the container itself. And we do put a little bit of bleach in. It's like a few teaspoons for so many gallons of water, and so so we do have those. And you got to make sure you have the spigot to get the water out, because a lot of people will buy those, but they forget to buy the spigot to get the water out. So.
And they have pumps available too, that you can order.
Pumps or spigots,
And my husband says not to forget that you can siphon from the barrel. Okay, so you have to manage your water, and that's really kind of number one. We've been talking about food, but as you can see, you can go quite a while, but you gotta have water. And then shelter, let's look at this for just a second because we're about ready to run out of time. So if your power's out, we're heading into the cold. We've had a taste of it. What are you gonna do to stay warm in your house? Something I've discovered, which was kind of a surprise to me, was that as I got older, I began to get colder faster somehow. And I discovered that having a neck scarf, get this warm back here, I could wrap it around and do all kinds of things. And so I now have this collection of these. And I find if I'm cold, like if I get children in the house or maybe in the car before it warms up, I just pull out my scarf. So that's kind of an easy thing to know about. Some people need to have socks at night. Some people, I have a friend, she needs to have something on her knees at night. So she's got these things that she wears to keep her knees warm. So here's the thing. If you're without power, you want to get your family unit, whatever that is, into one small room. One small room, preferably with a window to the south, because so you can get sunlight in. And then you maintain yourselves in this room and keep the heat in there. So that's in here. It's also, these people, the Provident Preppers, they have a 45-minute YouTube on what they did it for a week. They turned off all their power to see what it was like and what their experience was. Very interesting. And there's just lots and lots of information. But that's what has to do with this shelter. You have to immediately attend. If the power goes out, there's two things. One is you can fill your bathtubs with water. You can use your hot water heater water. So those are sources of water for you. And then you have to make sure that you can figure out how to keep everybody warm, because you don't know how long the power will be off. And we know that even in Utah, with the windstorms, people had power loss for a week or two, maybe longer. So what are you gonna do? These are just things that if you put your mind to it and give it some thought, you can come to some conclusions about what to do. We've got some help for you here. You have things in your home already. You don't have to go out and spend tons of money, but you need to find ways, figure out in your head how to do it, and then proceed to get a plan together. So we're about out of time, but are there any questions? Any thoughts you've had?
Can I make
Jane?
a comment?
Yeah.
On clothing stuff, I know for us in our 72-hour kit, I specifically bought neon colored clothes, like one of those bright yellow shirts, to be able to be found easier, or to use that to flag someone down or whatever it is. But I went out and bought the most obnoxious colored shirts I could from my family, and they're long sleeve, and just to have that idea of if you're buying something for a clothing preparedness, think about neon.
Okay.
That's a good idea.
Okay.
And remember to update it with if you have little. We had some 72-hour kits, and I think it was like 3 or 4 years, and I'm like, oh, we had like an extra child in there that we didn't have stuff for, and they're much bigger sizes. And
one thing I've done is I've put pacifiers in my kit, not for my family, but for another family, because if another family didn't prepare, I wouldn't want their baby to suffer. At least have a pacifier for that baby.
That's good.
So
Great
that's
idea.
one little thing I threw in there.
Anything else? Anybody?
Sister Loomis, could I put you on the spot for just a second?
Sure.
Would you tell us a little bit about your certification and any tips there that you would have?
So I'm a CERT, which is an emergency responder. Do you want me to? Okay. So, and I'm sorry, I smell like a campfire. I was in a bridal shower with the fire pit outside, so we could distance. So I smell like a campfire. Anyway, so I'm a CERT, which is a first responder. So probably in an emergency, people aren't coming. So, like
You're
for
talking
my
about emergency people aren't coming.
right, because if it's really widespread, they'll help for the first little bit, but then they'll all go home to their families. So so a few years ago, the state had a plan where they had block captains But most of the block captains have like moved away and stuff, but I'm still super serious about my block. So Mika's on my block, you're on my block. So when the earthquake happened, I went around and made sure everybody had their cards. Maybe we should do this as a ward if the state's not gonna do it and recertify some people as certs. But I have cards for the people on our block that my job is to, so I got trained to assess buildings. I have the correct tool to turn off people's gas so it doesn't spark. I can assess structures, do basic triage, and then there's a chain of command. So they even have in our neighborhood, they have like a place for the central command, place for like meals if needed. They have a place for medical care. They have a morgue in our neighborhood, so for like a really big thing. So they planned for all of that, but it's kind of like fizzled out over the years. So I'm hoping that the state will kind of pick it back up, that maybe we can do it as a ward. But so if there is an earthquake, you'll see me with my vest and my hard hat and stuff, and I'll do what I can to help. But some things that I've done, like for birthdays and Christmases, like I got a generator for Christmas because I was like, you know, I also got a Sawzall, which is a tool that will cut through metal and plastic and all kinds of stuff, and so, but it needs to be charged. So now I have a generator to charge my Sawzall, and I have a chainsaw with a bunch of because I'm like, if I'm home with a bunch of moms with babies, I'm not gonna sit by and wait for some guy to show up. Like, I've got a sledgehammer, I've got tools, I'm coming to help you and your babies. So I take it kind of seriously. So
Tell us the cards, the color of the cards and what that means.
Colored cards, and I don't want to say the wrong thing, but maybe as a ward we could make some, but they're for the people on my block. There's a color system, so you put it in your windows. So like, this color means I'm okay, this color means there's somebody injured and we'd like some help. There's a black card that means somebody is dead in the house and we need the body removed. There's different stuff. Yeah.
I have those cards and I keep them in my windowsill.
Yeah.
So that's where I store it. So if I need it, it's right there. And
Thank
it's tucked
you.
away.
It would really help me if everybody would do that.
But like,
on my
I
block,
would say, where is the colored paper? You know, like, but it's right at the window in case I need to slap it up there.
Yeah.
So that's a place to store it.
so maybe just as our ward, we could get on that and do better, even if the stake is kind of like fizzling a little bit. But yeah, so don't really plan on first responders coming, plan on helping each other. So it's even good, like, if even you want to take the reins and organize the people right around you and say, what tools do you have? Are there skills that you have that you're willing to share in an emergency? Like, what is it that you can help with? Like, do you have some tools to like brace up a house or help us break into a house if somebody's stuck in there? Or do you have some like whatever special skill? So I'm like on the surface about 5 inches deep on skills, but I'm gonna do whatever I can do. So I know how to do basic stuff, and I've got the important turn off the gas tool. So
That's great.
anyway, but
Thanks,
you
Sister
can
Lois.
get certified with the fire station. It's like a little 6 or 9 week course or something, and they just go through a number of different first responder type things, and it's really informative, and you don't have to be anybody special to do it. They teach you everything. So, do you have any other questions?
No, that's great. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Okay, we're gonna close here in just a minute, but as you have looked through these pamphlets, any questions about what you're seeing in there?
If I have one later, I will contact you.
Okay. So what do you, it said, one of the number 2 thing is develop a communication plan for your family. What do you think that might mean? Why do you need a communication plan?
Phones could be down or jammed up and busy, so just like, we always would have a plan, 'cause especially when we lived in California, and my husband had a really long commute, so it's like, where would we all meet? Where was the place, like, we would all meet up in case there was some emergency, and just, you know, and who would we contact first to kind of just let, so at least if one person could kind of know everyone's okay, and they could slowly get out to people, so we kind of had, you know, just a plan that way, like, who should we contact first?
I've got, these are from Colorado, cause I came from Colorado, and the Utah guy here, I have not been able to reach him, so I'm gonna give you these. And they've got inside here communication cards.